So we've got a new upgraded Drukhari squad, a plastic super heavy tank with an enormous laser destroyer, and Games Workshop dropping a rather interesting teaser with Farsight appearing in the Arks of Omen. Let's talk some Warhammer. Hello and welcome back to Warspecs Tactics, where over the last day or so we've been talking about all Games Workshop's new reveals from the Las Vegas Open, and in this one I thought we'd just round up some of the last bits, plus a rather interesting teaser that they've dropped later on in the day. Let's talk about the squad, then the tank, then the teaser. First up, I thought I'd just touch on this new Drukhari release, the Hand of the Archon upgrade for the Kabbalah Warrior box. It's basically another one of these kill team releases where they put another sprue in the box and they add in a fair few fun bits. I feel like perhaps some of these are a little bit more effective or interesting than others. I'd say it's not quite as exciting as having entirely new miniatures, and the sprues have kind of varied in how useful they are to the units. I feel like the Space Marine Phobos one didn't really add anything significant, nor really the Tower Pathfinders, but the Chaos Space Marine Legionary upgrade sprue did actually add some pretty meaningful war gear choices, things like the Gatling Cannon, Big Chain Axe, and Mini Cycle within the squad. It looks like this upgrade sprue adds rather a lot of fun cool new heads and things for the army for a bit of aesthetics. This rather fun new bird guy who apparently is a Sky Splinter assassin, and a guy who's using some sort of spooky vials for something, not sure if he's draining some sort of soul energy from them to get some more power from pain. Otherwise, from the other half of the squad, we've got a fair bit of interesting combat gear. I think that guy either might be a medic or some sort of toxin poisoner, perhaps both knowing the Drukhari. There's a nice razor flail type thing, and I feel like perhaps one of the most interesting and disturbing of the miniatures is that chap with the two blades second from the right. Looks pretty murderous in melee. The new sprue's first going to be available in that Kill Team Soul Shackle box, another one that's alongside the Arbites Kill Team, and it comes with a bunch of that other Space Hulk terrain, the ones in this box having some breachable walls and things, which I think is quite fun. You could have warriors basically cutting holes in part of the spaceship to try and get through to the enemy. As I mentioned when we were talking about the Arbites earlier, I would expect that this would be £130, €170 or $210. Really very expensive if your main goal is to get a Kabbalah Warrior sprue. I don't think many people will be buying the box primarily for these guys, though I feel like with the Arbites being in quite a lot of demand, I suspect that there might be a fair few of these popping up on eBay. After that, I suspect that they'll release the Kill Team set individually as an alternative box to the Kabbalah Warriors, so you'd have a cheaper option if you don't want the sprue, or this one at a slightly inflated price if you do. I guess it's not terrible to have a Drukhari release. There haven't been all that many in recent years. Drazar the Incubi and Lilith are the most recent, I think. Though really I must admit it's not the most exciting release in the world. Plus the Drukhari have plenty more problems within their range that they need fixing. Things like some plastic grotesques or mandrakes will be quite good. It would be pretty sad if Games Workshop just retired those miniatures permanently and didn't have them in the next codex. As I mentioned, it's an upgrade sprue, it's not the most exciting thing in the world. There are a few fun aesthetic options, and I guess a little bit of interesting melee gear, but I feel like a lot of the bits aren't really enormously great upgrades on the Kabbalah Warrior sprue, which is kind of quite fun anyway. I don't suspect that any of those war gear choices are massively going to revolutionise the unit and change how you play it to a meaningful degree. Most of the combat gear looks kind of good against light infantry, but not going to be taking down tanks or things. And I feel like often with Kabbalite warriors, you just want to keep them as cheap as possible, maybe throw in a blaster or something for a little bit of threat if you're feeling generous. The specialists will be a lot more meaningful than Kill Team, of course. There's a few named ones that they gave us, like an Arc Cyberite, the Crimson Duelist, and a Sky Splinter Assassin, who I think is the guy with the bird. I guess it's not impossible we could see some sort of 40k rules that reflect specialists like that, like they did with the Eldar Corsairs one, or that Chaos Space Marine with the Balefire Tome. I'm honestly not sure if Games Workshop might issue an updated datasheet for these guys. It's not impossible, as things like the Kroot Farstalkers got some rules, and they basically only had a few bits of special weapons that were massively different to the standard Kroots, but things like the Pathfinders and Infiltrators didn't get a digital update, nor did the Chaos Space Marines until they actually had their Codex release. The kit does have a fair amount of melee gear that's not represented by any datasheet in the Codex though. They could get their own unique datasheet, maybe as an Elite's choice, perhaps with a few other interesting options. I guess a raised Kabbalite squad could be kind of interesting and give you an alternative to Trueborn. Otherwise, another 40k relevant preview from the LVO was the new updated Cerberus Tank. We'd seen this one in the January previews as well. This one's a great big Spartan variant with a neutron laser, perhaps not enormously different to the Typhon with the great big siege cannon that we'd seen previously. Games Workshop does seem to be keeping the big Heresy armoured vehicles coming at a fairly impressive rate. They have converted a good chunk of the Forge World range into plastic now, though I sort of feel that they might be saturating people's interest just a little bit. It felt like quite a big deal when they redid the Spartan in plastic, but now we've seen the Land Raider plus 2 different variants of ranged Spartans, I feel like people are just getting a little bit less excited than before. Still though, it certainly looks like a fun tank, a great big Land Raider with an enormous technological looking neutron laser mounted out the front, and it looks like it's got the usual choice of sponsons and top mounted weapons. I'd guess it is probably going to be priced similar to the regular Spartan tank, £67, €87 or $112. Again, it's a big price decrease compared with the astronomical Forge World costs, though I guess that isn't exactly saying a lot. The Cerberus does have some 40k rules as well, applicable to the Space Marines and the Chaos Marines. Like the Spartan, it's also a Titanic vehicle as well, so basically can rumble around and perhaps be a little bit more aggressive, moving up the field and potentially falling back and shooting if it wants to. It's got 20 wounds at toughness 8 and a 2+ save, not terrible defense, but still not enormously standout at a big 370 points. It's both more expensive and less durable than 2 Lehman Russes, for example. Obviously the exciting bit is the stats on that enormous main gun. The Cerberus Neutron Pulse Array is a heavy 4 weapon with strength 14, AP-4 and damage 2d3, and if you choose to remain stationary it goes into rage mode, getting all of those attacks at damage 6 instead. Certainly a big scary gun that you don't really want to get in the way of, but for 370 points it's still not actually that great a profile. A 3-man squad of Eradicators will outshoot this thing against quite a lot of targets when they're up close. Definitely not strong in game in any sense of the word. I feel like this one's a bit more of a collector's piece though, as opposed to anything that you particularly get because it's really powerful. Finally, last but by no means least, Games Workshop have dropped this Farsight teaser over on Warhammer Community. It's basically a card with the words "The Horde" on, and then a hand reaching up towards the Dawnblaze. A very clear picture of the mysterious relic weapon that Commander Farsight of the Tower wields, one that's got a bit of a murky origin story and has been rumoured to be linked to Chaos in the past. I had honestly thought that we were getting to the end of the Arks of Omen tarot card series, but it seems that there might well be more to come. Just judging by this one, I sort of feel that there might be a bit of a pattern emerging, and maybe when the entire sequence is revealed, it'll turn out that each 4 cards represents one book out of the Arks of Omen series. I just feel like the first 4 cards they've got, Galaxy, Despoiler, Hulk, and Key, kind of talk about the lore of the first book. Abaddon wants to conquer the galaxy, so they're setting off in Space Hulks to find some keys to build a super weapon. If it was 4 per book, then that would mean the Angron book would be the Host, the Hound, the Shattered World, and the God Emperor inversed. Basically sounds like Angron's caused some carnage and set the Imperium back, perhaps. The next 4 would be the Vashtor book, Demon, Astartes, Lightning Tower, and the Demon inversed. The Demon maybe being Vashtor, then gets stopped by the Astartes and the Lightning Tower, which signifies the Deathwing. And then I'd guess the Demon inverse probably means that Vashtor has come off second best out of this entire fight. If that pet theory is accurate, then there might be 4 to go, and this might be the first from the last book. And it's kind of interesting that we don't know the title of that book yet, but Games Workshop did say that it would be a Xenos affair. I had thought, from when they teased Farsight's miniature back in the New Year's previews, that there would be a pretty decent chance that Commander Farsight would appear on the cover of the 4th Arks of Omen book, though I'm not entirely sure exactly how the story jumps from Vashtor besieging the rock and trying to make a super weapon, to something to do with Farsight entering the narrative in one way or another. I guess the Horde could represent something Chaos, but Farsight is kind of well known for fighting against Orcs, and seeing as we know that there's a new Snickrock character as well, it could represent some sort of Tau-Orc conflict to kick the book off, before moving on to something that's presumably all to do with the fate of the galaxy. In any case, as an upshot for model releases, we know that the 4th Arks of Omen book is going to be coming in late spring, so if that one is indeed titled Farsight, I'd guess that his miniature is going to be dropping alongside that, so we might well be seeing a Farsight miniature release somewhere around April to May perhaps. Guess we'll wait and see though, it does look like he's tied up with that whole narrative, otherwise he wouldn't be on these tarot cards. So anyway, a few interesting little bits of 40k news there. Let me know what you make of the new Drukhari, the Cerberus, and the Farsight teaser down in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video and you'd like to keep up with Games Workshop's 40k model releases and rules news, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. I do tend to post 40k videos every day, and I have covered the other 40k relevant 40k previews. I'll leave a link to my video on the Adeptus Arbites kill team down in the video description. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that linked in the video description as well. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some really big model kits each month. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.